Yes, it's me back with another video about superheroes. But this is not an ordinary superhero. This is the godfather of superheroes. It all started with him. He's iconic, he's symbolic, but above all, he is my favorite. So let's talk about Superman.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman! Yes, it's Superman!
For many years now, there has been talks about how Superman was a difficult character to write or adapt on the big screen. For some people it is because he is too powerful. For others it is because he is unrelatable, or as others like to say, he is boring. Which has always been funny to me because all of these are false claims made mostly by people who either don't read Superman comics or are simply not fans of the character. I want to get ahead of myself. Let's do this one step at a time. According to author Brad Meltzer, Jerry Siegel, co-creator of Superman, created the character after learning of his father's death on the hands of robbers. Siegel's father also happened to be an immigrant from Lithuania, just like Superman is considered to be an immigrant. He was reportedly shot and murdered, which led to the creation of a bulletproof, overpowered superhero by 17-year-old Jerry Siegel. Author Brad Meltzer stated, and I quote, "Why did we get Superman? Because a little boy named Jerry Siegel heard his father was murdered and in grief created a bulletproof man." Although the father's death remained a mystery and Siegel himself never admitted it was actually a murder, the coincidence is just too big to ignore. The point I'm trying to make is that Superman was possibly created by a teenager in grief who wished his father was invincible so that he wouldn't get hurt by robbers or thieves. Even the first issues of the Superman comics were always him stopping robbers with masks. At that time, people weren't looking for heroes with grounded abilities. They were looking for more. They were looking for a Superman. They didn't ask themselves if they could relate to an invincible alien. They just thought it would be cool to have an overpowered god who would stop every single crime in town. But what about today? Today is no different in my opinion. The only difference is the world we live in. But it doesn't necessarily mean our heroes need to change too. Sure, we have seen superheroes take on robbers a million times before. But do you know what we haven't seen much of? Superman using his abilities in full capacity. That's why I didn't mind Man of Steel's third act. And the fight in Smallville was a real moment for me. I almost cried watching it. It was like a dream come true. Superman's abilities offer the possibility for going big. We could have someone like Brainiac or Darkseid on the big screen. Villains that are so powerful, it wouldn't be possible to adapt them without an equally powerful hero. In brief, stop making Superman's powers and abilities feel like weaknesses or a character flaw. They are not. Those of us who grew up with Superman know how it feels like to look up to a powerful hero and feel and wish that they were real. Power is not a flaw. Also, a very powerful Superman can make for some epic fight scenes. I came across an interview the other day from the Russo brothers. They were talking about how hard it is to tell a story about characters that are too powerful to write. They are so powerful it is impossible to make anyone care about them. Anthony Russo said, and I quote, "The more powerful a character is, the more difficult to deal with that character on a narrative level. As storytellers and the way we explore characters, we always look for vulnerabilities in characters because that's where the characters become interesting. They are superficially interesting in their strength, but they get more depth when you find where they don't have that kind of strength. In general, the more powerful a character is, the more tricky that is." And you know what? They are absolutely right. A flawless character is difficult to write, and honestly, it is hard to care about a character that seems to have no weaknesses. But for me, weaknesses of characters don't come from physical threats. How we relate to characters don't come from their physical abilities. Rey was not physically invincible in The Force Awakens, but a lot of people didn't connect with her because she seemed to have everything under control all the time. Sarah Connor and Laurie Strode are beloved characters because of how human their characters felt, how they grew into powerful women throughout the film. Their weaknesses were not just how they were inferior to their opponents, but how relatable they were in the way they reacted to situations. To go back to the Russo brothers, they were asked if Superman was one of those characters, which they agreed on. And Joe Russo would go as far as stating this, and I quote, "He is a very difficult character. You have to find an emotional flaw or weakness in the character in order to make them vulnerable." Which is partly true. Superman's known weakness is the kryptonite. That is physical weakness. But I see that more of a plot device, to be honest. It is used most of the time to make Superman fight regular people like Lex Luthor. But Superman's weakness is not the kryptonite. His weakness is his humanity. That's how some of the bad guys have been able to hurt him even when they couldn't hurt him physically. His humanity always makes him relatable. In Superman the movie, Pa Kent dies from a heart attack. Superman, despite having all these powers, has to watch his father die knowing there is nothing he can do about it. Knowing the pain of having human parents that are not invincible like you, something that makes him appreciate life even more. That's what makes him care about his loved one's safety, because he knows, unlike him, they are not invincible. That's his weakness. That's not hard to adapt. That's why Superman the movie is so perfect. And that's why it's still a superior movie to Man of Steel for many people. The movie treats Superman like a human being and uses his humanity against him throughout the course of the film. Unlike what many people think, Superman is not perfect. He gets angry.
Superman! Go! I'm finishing this! Kent, don't be a fool.
Sometimes he lets his emotions get the best of him. And even though he's trying to be an example, a beacon of hope, like the rest of us, he is bound to have bad moments. And that's what makes him relatable. And that is easy to adapt. People who talk about how Superman isn't relatable or how he is hard to adapt most of the time are people who can't see beyond the fact that he is powerful. To me, what makes Superman special is not his strength. It is how human he is despite not being from Earth, and how despite his powers, he still deals with human emotions the same way as we do. You want to adapt a Superman story and make it work? Don't focus on Superman. Focus on Clark Kent.
Superman was never real.
Because Clark is not his hidden persona. Superman is. Clark Kent is the only one that matters. You focus on Clark Kent and it is impossible not to get Superman right.
I'm starting to think being good isn't good for me.
It seems that way sometimes, doesn't it? But that's because good is hard. Bad is always easy.
Superman is not one-dimensional. The reason his character still works in Elseworld stories like Kingdom Come or Superman Red Son proves just that. As long as the ideal of the character and what he stands for still exists, the character will resonate with his fans. I understand many people have issues with how the character was portrayed in Man of Steel, but if those issues don't come from the characterization of Superman himself and rather comes from the fact that he was nothing like Christopher Reeve, then you completely miss the point of what Superman is supposed to be. If your issue with Man of Steel is Zod's death, then I can understand how a Superman fan may be uncomfortable seeing the big blue Boy Scout take someone's life so brutally. I can understand that. But what I will never agree to is that Superman only works when portrayed in the same way as he was in the 1978 movie. If that was the case, Superman Returns would have been a great success. Superman the animated series would have been rejected by fans. Because I never watched the animated series and thought he was exactly like Christopher Reeve. The series brought its own flavor to the character, its own unique style, while keeping the character's ideal intact. Superman Returns, on the other hand, reminded me way too much of 1978 Superman, something that no one can do better than Christopher Reeve. You cannot do Reeve better than Reeve. This is also why I'm not really feeling Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. Copying 1978 Superman to play it safe, it's what's holding the character back. I respected Man of Steel because it took a different route with the origin story of Superman, and even though I have my issues with where they went after that, I have huge respect for Snyder for actually having the balls to take the character in another direction. And even though he didn't always succeed in highlighting Superman's core ideal and making him stand out, at least he tried to create something different and didn't resort to the usual Christopher Reeve ripoff. My suggestion for a good Superman film: focus on his human side. Whoever you pick as a villain, whether it's Lex Luthor, Brainiac or Metallo, just make sure you let us connect with Clark Kent first. Use his humanity against him because that's his biggest weakness. Give us some entertainment because Superman can be a badass when done right. But by doing so, just make sure you don't reduce his powers to an excuse to blow things up. And last but not least, let him be aspiring. Let him be the beacon of hope he was created to be. There are thousands of comics you can draw inspiration from. Don't let Superman be shelved, and don't let him go back to being in some crappy CW TV show. The character deserves better, and honestly, the fans do too. Hi guys, and thank you as always for watching. And I also made a video about Saitama from One Punch Man, and I explained how he and Superman are very similar to some extent, so maybe check it out. I don't know. Anyways, I just want to end this video by saying that I absolutely love Superman and everything he represents. He's the hero people need and the character people should and love to look up to. I hope WB give us the movie we deserve. I don't care if it's a reboot or whatever, I just want another Superman movie ASAP. This character needs to be back on the big screen. He deserves it, he deserves better. So, fingers crossed. Anyways, thank you as always for watching. As for me, I'll see you around. Bye bye.